Hey YouTube, it's Jaden, and this is going to be sort of a Vanguard related video about not only Texas and all my experience, but it's also going to be top 8 deck profile of the deck that I chose to run, and I'll also go over everything I ran. I might want this. This has my notes in it. Hang on, guys. I don't know why I keep getting this damn pop-up every time I try to film a video. But anyway, guys, so I recently came back this past weekend from my trip to Houston, Texas for the Bushiroad 2019 Springfest Team League tournaments. And I gotta say, I had an absolute blast. To everybody that I saw, got to hang out with, play, and all that. It was great seeing you. I had a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to going back later in the year. Um, I'm hopeful that it will still be in Houston and it will still be located at the same hotel at the Westin in Memorial City. I absolutely love that hotel. I love its location. It's just the perfect place for a tournament. So, Bushiroad, if this somehow makes its way to you, please keep the Texas tournaments in Houston at the Memorial City Westin Hotel, please. So, real quickly, I have here all my rounds for you guys. I made sure to write all this down. So, real quickly, the deck that I chose to play for Houston this year was Shadow Paladins. Now, you might be saying, Jaden, you always play Kagero. Why didn't you choose to play the Great? I really didn't have a whole lot of time to playtest the new Kagero stuff because it dropped recently, right before the tournament. So I really didn't have enough time. Anybody who knows me when I play my Kagero decks, I'm extremely picky to the max because I want everything perfect, and I literally test everything. Um, Shadow Paladin is a deck that I've played Shadow Paladin so long, and I've played almost every variant of it that it's come across in the entire history of the game. It's probably my second strongest clan, to be honest with you. So I know how Shadow Paladin works. I know how the deck flows. I know the playstyle very well, and I know how to react to a multiple of different playstyles. So I felt it was the best option for me for a lot of reasons. One, Shadow Paladin really focuses on maintaining your opponent from having to forcing your opponent to not only replenish their field from using skills like PBD and Blaster Dark and continuously hitting their rear guards while swinging for maximum amounts of damage. Not only are they going to have to replenish their field, they have to hold somewhat cards in their hand, and trying to balance that out is really hard. Before we go further, guys, I'm going to open up this door because it's hotter than a motherfucker at the moment. So, not only that, I felt that it matched. I predicted there was going to be a lot of Kagero, and I was actually really right. And I know how to play against Kagero very well, for since it's my best clan. So I knew that I could play Shadow Paladin, have a good matchup against the Kagero matchup, and do very very well. Um, so I wasn't worried about that. I suspected there would be some Royal Paladin players. There was quite a few. I knew I'd have a great matchup in that regard. I really didn't think I'd see a whole lot of Aquaforce, but I was also thinking I might run into Ezel decks. Um, and there was a lot of Ezel running around. Shadow Paladin matches up very well against all of them. And they also, I think Shadow Paladin has the best matchup against Melody. Now, Melody is probably the best deck in Standard currently, and that's just because the ability to have a 61k swinging Vanguard with two 71 swinging k rear guards is just too damn good, especially in a Standard format where you do not have the luxury of a G Guardian. Now, so we're gonna get into my list, my rounds. Round one, I played against Royal Paladin. This literally could not have been a better opening round for me. Now, and real quickly, I teamed with my teammates Christian and new Shadow Strike member Michael. And Christian played Melody, and Michael played Murakumo. Now, round one, I drew Royal Paladin. Like I said, when we sat down, I was hoping I would get a Royal Paladin match because there is no better opening thing to play against with Shadow Paladins except maybe Aquaforce, because Royal Paladins and Aquaforce, they kind of just fold if you can wipe their board, throw massive amounts of damage at them, force them to have to guard, and then literally just have to hope and pray on trigger sacking in order to win. So this guy was playing Royal Paladin. He was using the Alfred variant. He said he didn't get all the stuff he needed to play the Blaster variant, so he was playing just Alfred Sanctuary, and unfortunately with PBD, I never went into Gust Blaster. I just sat on PBD, kept wiping his field, taking away 3 of his rear guards, and it just worked out. So unfortunately for him, he never really got into making big plays. He never got to ride Monarch Sanctuary because he just stuck on original Alfred to keep calling that Blaster Blade out to try and help maintain somewhat of a field, but eventually he just ran out of cards. Round 2, I played against Melody. And by the way, I beat Royal Paladin. Melody, I beat this Melody player, but it was probably the hardest match out of before top 8. The reason for this being was when you're playing against Melody, you have to be very careful about what you do and what you don't do. You have to make sure you're taking away their field while forcing them to replenish it from their hand to decrease their defense. I did that very well, stayed on PBD the entire game, and it really just didn't play out well for him. I played the matchup very well. I was aware of the Melody matchup. I'd played against it some, but I wasn't scared of the matchup, and I felt that the matchup went very well in my favor. Road Blaster Dark on my grade 2 ride, took out his 1 extra rear guard, got my main engine running, swung with Twin Drive, he let it go, hit a crit and a draw trigger, had a very powered up Darkside Trumpeter and Cathbade on the side, and he took almost all of it. It was a very, very good matchup, and it was not a very good, it was a very good game for me, and I played what I think I didn't make a single wrong move that entire match. Game 3, played against Kagero, ended up winning. I also played Kagero in round 4 and won there too. I don't remember if it was my round 3 or my round 4 matchup. He literally opened up with a grade 1, a grade 2, and then he did nothing but draw his Overlords. So he literally had no defense, no field, and he just kept getting run over. It was either round 3 or 4. Whoever that wasn't that got all the grade 3s in their hands pretty much slow field. One of them made a very interesting error, in my opinion. He had Neo Flame on the field. I knew he had the Great in his hand because he searched it. He called Neo Flame as a rear guard, which is smart because Neo Flame's going to come back out of the drop zone when you ride the Great. Well, I attacked Neo Flame at one point, mainly because it was the only thing I could hit because he damage checked, and I figured, okay, what the hell, I'll take it out anyway. And he guarded it, which made no sense to me. He dropped a 15k shield to protect a rear guard that would have revived for free just because of a ride, so he technically minus 2'd, and that made no sense to me. But, you know, it is what it is. Round 5, this was interesting. Round 5, I played Gear Chronicle. Now, I have not read any of the standard Gear Chronicle cards. I have not seen a standard Gear Chronicle deck, and I didn't know what any of his cards did because I just wasn't interested in playing Gear Chronicle anymore because I played them during the G era, and I imagined that I knew that they weren't going to make them as busted as they did in Standard because we don't want that again. But I hadn't read any of his cards. So this was going into round 5, and we were XO. We hadn't lost yet, and we flipped over Gear Chronicle. Because at this point, I'm expecting I'm only going to see Melody, I'm only going to see more Kagero or Royals, things that are going to be topping regularly, right? And he flips over the Gear Chronicle starter, and I'm like, what? So it was a pretty interesting match. I had to read all of his cards. I think he probably got a little annoyed with me, but he never got his extra turn combo off, and he never, even when he strided, it really never did much damage except the one time that I let his grade 4 unit attack me with an extra crit, and I was at 1 damage. So it really didn't scare me, but he played the deck very well, and he was you know, it was an interesting match. I've never seen Gear Chronicle played in standard format, so I hope he didn't. I think he got annoyed with me, but I don't know that for a fact. He was nice, but I think because I had to continuously read all the cards, it got him a little flustered. So if you're watching this, I am terribly sorry, but it was a very fun match, and it's one that was probably one of my favorite of the tournament, just because I never even read any Gear Chronicle cards from the standard format. Round six, I played Kagero again, and it was just the Overlord variant with the Great. Very good matchup for me. I ended up winning it. I went into round seven, which round seven was the very last round. XO. I hadn't I hadn't lost. In round seven, I was really pissed because I got a very good matchup. I got Neo Nectar, and Neo Nectar in round seven, I couldn't ask for a better matchup except maybe Royal Paladins or another Kagero match. But this was the one round that my deck just decided to say, we're going to brick. Got a grade 1, got a grade 2, and I literally drew every grade 3 in my deck. And if you've ever played against Neo Nectar and you know how they work, they just swarm you, and deck just said, fuck you, Jaden. But, unfortunately, that's the way it works. But, made top 8. My top 8 matchup was, what did I play in top 8? I think it was another Kagero match. But, for some reason I didn't write that down. Yeah, it was another Kagero match. Unfortunately, I won, but in order to win in Team League, 2 out of the 3 you have to win. Unfortunately, that didn't work. That'd been round 8. Round 8 was me and Christian both went into... Christian went into top 8, hadn't lost at all. I went into round 7, only X1 because of losing to Neo Nectar. And then Michael, I think he was X3. His deck literally was not working for him all day. I think he death healed twice to win 2 of his games, and that's literally how he won. But round 8 was the one time Christian's deck just gave him a giant middle finger. So it literally, the stars didn't align for us, but you know what? We had a blast. We had a lot of fun, a lot of good games. So I'm going to jump straight into this deck profile now for you guys. So we were team that looks like a 5, and it's flipped, but that's team 20. So we were team 20. I played in slot B. So Shadow Paladins, full bow, your starter, standard. Trigger lineup, I go 7 crit, 5 draw, 4 heal. Reason for this being, I could actually even possibly see playing 6 draw in the deck because both of your unit grade 3s that you play produce extra crits, and I might actually consider doing that for later. But it worked out very well. You mainly want to play, I think, extra draw triggers in case you have to rest Nemain to call one of them out of your deck for PBD's skill or Gust Blaster. But the deck worked out very well, so I can't really complain. Grade 1s, of course, we play the 4 Charon, Black Sage Charon, standard Shadow Paladin card. Whenever she's called through an ability, you may Soul Blast 1 to countercharge 1, and she gains 3,000 power. Really, really good card, pretty standard, gets you countercharge. Pretty much every Shadow Paladin player runs her at 4. 4 copies of Skull Witch Nemain. Nemain is our engine for filtering our deck, getting out our Skull Witches and our Sword Breakers. Nemain, rest her, call out another unit with 5,000 power, and call it at rest. Rest her to call out a unit with 5,000 power. You can only use that ability once per turn. So, just your standard clean out engine. Only 3 Swordbreaker. I don't want to play 4-4. For the sole fact being, you can't tell me I'm going to need 4 Swordbreaker every single game. Three Swordbreaker enough is where I'm going to be able to draw her while as well as call her if I need her. And I don't want to have too many 7 grade 1s with 5k as my limit because you really don't like riding this unless you have to. Um, if you call her from your hand, she gains 5,000 power and, and lets you draw a card for a counterblast of 1, but when she's called from the deck, she doesn't gain the 5,000 power, so make sure you're playing that right. And then the last grade 1 is 2 copies of Garurubao. Garurubao is a very good grade 1. If you're on grade 3, he swings for 14. On a force circle, he swings for 24. He's just a very, very versatile card, and he's another grade 1 that is rideable because typically my grade 1 ride, I want to ride either him or Charon. You really don't want to have to ride one of your Nemains or Swordbreakers, so it's just nice to have another grade 1 ride target that's not 5k. So, grade 2s, 4 copies of Blaster Dark. Now, you really, this was, my grade 2 lineup was the one that I was the most, changing the most of and testing before Saturday's tournament. Blaster Dark ended up being, I was going to go to 2, and then I decided no, I wanted to go to 3, and then while I was filling out my deck list and all the testing I did the night before, I was like, no, I really want the 4 Blaster Dark. Main reason being that it is a 10k body, so if you are playing against Excel clans, sometimes they'll have to swing and hope for a trigger. 2, it gets you a retire. 3, there is that twin drive. He just has a lot of positives because you're rarely going to use his skill on a rear guard, but sometimes you do because it's just another card that your opponent's going to have to get rid of next turn. It's nice to have that option. It's nice to get the twin drive off, especially because a lot of times your opponent is not going to call a lot of cards because they know what you're playing. So essentially, a lot of the time they're just going to let you have your twin drive, and that's really nice to have because if you can somehow pull a crit, it's a very good early game push. So 4 Blaster Dark, 4 copies of Darkness Maiden Maka. Darkness Maiden Maka, very, very, very good card with Black Sage Karen. You get a 26k column for free, essentially, because Counterblast 1, call this, Soul Blast 1, countercharge it back, get 3k, draw a card. So you essentially, you don't minus at all. It's just a 26k column for free. Keep in mind also, a lot of people forget that her skill is an act ability, not an auto skill. Reason I say that is there was a lot of times that my opponent would leave this on the field and the next turn I'd reactivate it, and they'd be like, it's only on call, and I said, no, it's not, it's an act skill, and they'd look at it and go, oh, I thought it was only when she's called her skill activated. Nope. Her skill can be activated once per turn, and she doesn't need to be called, so 3 copies of Darkside Trumpeter, or Dark Bond Trumpeter. I'm sorry. Dark Bond Trumpeter is basically just another card that you use to get your Nemain engine going, so you can start thinning your deck. Really, really good. Also, because anytime a unit with 5k power is called, she gains 3k. Usually for my grade 2 ride, I want either I want Blaster Dark, but if I can't have Blaster Dark, then Dark Bond is a good backup because you can use her to call out Nemain if you haven't already, and she gets 3k. And there was one game, I had 2 Nemains in hand, or no, I had 1 Nemain in hand, and I chose to ride her, called out a Nemain at rest, and then I called Nemain from my hand, rested this Nemain to call another Nemain, and she gained 9k power. So, you know, you can really use her very well to start setting your board up, and start thinning your deck and getting your triggers more and more likely to show up. So I don't think 4 is necessary. However, I do only play 1 copy of Tragic Knight Cathbad. Cathbad's okay. You can also make this a Curse Lancer if you want. I really don't like Curse Lancer. I tested him out. I don't like that I have to minus myself in order to essentially countercharge, and I have to be completely countercharged out in order to do it. I just think he's a bad card. I think he would have been better if they would have just made him on call, countercharge one, um, and call him over something else. I don't think that part where all you must have no cards face up in the damage zone in order to activate. I think that's bad. I get that they just didn't want to make him a copy of his old form, where if his attack hit, just countercharge. But um, Cathbad is good because, like I said, I don't see the point of playing a fourth trumpeter, and then I'm maxed out on Blaster Dark and Maka, so there really isn't much else. And Blaster Rapier is really not that good of a card. I'd rather just have a rear guard that's going to swing big. And Cathbad, he pulled his weight for only being one of, and I saw him pretty much, pretty frequently actually. I think I saw him almost every game. So, grade threes. First, we play 4 copies of Phantom Blaster Dragon. Phantom Blaster Dragon, out of both my grade threes, he put in the most work. Simply because this is the best grade 3 that you can sit on. Because he has multiple things he can do. He can force 3 units off your opponent's board, swing for 28 plus a crit without force circles, and unboosted. And then he has the ability where you can say, if you ride Phantom Blaster Dragon first, you can ride over him to Soul Blast out and just deal your opponent a damage, which I did that, I think, at least 3 or 4 times before top 8. He's just a good card. He's a card that is good in a lot of matchups, and he's going to do you a lot of... he's going to give you a lot of positives to push for the win. Very good card. And as good as Gust Blaster is, I still think this is the best grade 3 ride, period, for the deck. And always the first grade 3 you want to ride. And then we play 4 copies of Gust Blaster Dragon. Gust Blaster Dragon can be a finisher if your opponent guards everything and they're at low damage. Then you definitely want to get on him as soon as possible, so you can swing for that big number with all those crits if they have a small hand. I was testing Dark Sage Bodkar, because Bodkar goes really well with Gust Blaster, but I chose not to play him because I didn't want to ride him. If I rode Gust Blaster first, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but it's not the end of the world, because then if you draw into this, you can ride over it, and you have a grade 3 to Soul Blast out to deal your opponent a damage, so it's not the end of the world. But Gust Blaster Dragon, you know, when he attacks, counterblast 1, sack off 2 units, your opponent loses a rear guard, you draw a card, and he gains 10k, and then anytime during that turn that you want to call a unit over another unit, he gains +1 crit. So you can really deal a lot of damage. There was one game where my opponent was at 2 damage, and he had a very small hand because he was just trying to guard everything. Rode into Gust Blaster for my second grade 3, put the Force Circle under him, called a column, replaced both of it to give him +2 crit, so he was sitting at 3, and had a boost, and he swung for 23 plus the 23 plus the Force Circle, 33. I gave him a boost too. He swung for like 40. I think it was a Garuru Bow, so that would be 23, 33, 41 plus 2 crits, so he's sitting at 3 critical, and my opponent didn't have enough to even attempt to guard and ripped another crit off the top. So your opponent can really screw themselves if they forget about this card, or they're gambling that you don't have it. So very, very, it's a good finisher, but it's not, in my opinion, the better grade 3 of the deck. So anyway, guys, that is my Shadow Paladin deck that I played at the Bushiroad Springfest 2019 Team Leagues. Had a lot of fun. It was a very good day. Unfortunately, we couldn't go further than than what we did, but I had a lot of fun. I wish we would have been able to win out, but we had fun, and we'll get it next time. But anyway, guys, for those of you who might want to build Shadow Paladin, this is still a very good deck in the meta. I see them still being very good, even with Mordred eventually coming out soon, and with Blasters getting all their support. I see Shadow Paladin still being very much as an anti-meta deck. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoyed the deck profile. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up the video, share it with your friends, and I'll see you next time.